Hey, it's Dave Allen, the dating specialist. I help high profile singles and couples achieve lasting love with absolute discretion and without wasting time through the mastery of proven skills based on tried and true principles and values. In this video, I'll be talking about this week's episode of 90 Day Fiancé. Reality TV shows that deal with relationships provide me with some specific scenarios I can respond to and teach principles. Now, you can't see me right now, but I'm putting reality in air quotes. As I talk to and about the people on the show, I'll be giving them the benefit of the doubt. We aren't seeing all the couples' interactions. The producers of the show are using specific clips to highlight the stories they want to tell. What we are seeing on TV, it's not the full story. This week, I'll be focusing on the interaction between Brandon and Julia, as well as Brandon's parents. I'll be speaking to Brandon as if he were my client. Let's get started. Brandon, in this episode of 90 Day Fiancé, you find yourself caught in the middle. Now, this is a situation you've really been in for a number of episodes now, but we really see it coming to a head in multiple ways. You're being pulled in multiple directions by your parents, by your mom, by your dad, by Julia. You're trying to get the work done on the farm to make your parents happy, but you're trying to spend time with Julia to make her happy. And what's ending up happening is that you are not happy and they are not happy. Everyone seems to be miserable in this situation. I think one of the statements you make during the episode really sums up the situation. You say,
"Tell me what to do. Somebody please tell me what to do. No matter what I do, somebody's gonna yell at me."
Brandon, you have what some people refer to as the nice guy syndrome. I want to refer you to a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. I'll put a link down in the description below. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with everything in this book, but I think it's got a lot of great principles for you that would be helpful. So what is a nice guy and what's the problem with being a nice guy? Here are some of the nice guy traits I see in you from pages 22 and 23 in the book. First, you seek approval from others. You avoid conflict. You tend to repress your feelings. You have difficulty making your needs a priority. Does that sound familiar? I'm guessing it does. And I speak to you not from a place of judgment. I speak to you as one nice guy to another. I have tendencies of being a nice guy, and I have found myself in situations similar to yours. So what's the problem with being a nice guy? Well, there can be some pain that comes with that. Right now, you feel miserable and trapped in a situation you can't get out of because your success is based on making other people happy. You're feeling a lack of power. Is that right? I want to help you make some changes so you can feel empowered to make your own choices and not trapped by the whims of others. That sounds better. Am I right? So here's what you can do. First, you need to determine what your feelings and needs are. As a nice guy, that can be really hard to do. It seems like it shouldn't be hard to do, but it can be because you're so focused on the feelings and needs of others. So what do you want and need out of this situation? Some possibilities might be you want and need some time to spend with Julia. You want to be financially sound, and that's part of the reason that you're living on the farm in the first place with your parents. Now I would ask, is keeping your parents happy, is that a feeling or need? And I would say, no, that's not your feeling or need. You have a desire for that, but that's more tied to the nice guy syndrome. Instead of defining your feeling or need as I want to keep my parents happy, I would say your feeling and need is you want to be a good and respectful son. But that shouldn't be based on their definition of what a good and respectful son is. That should be based on your definition. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Another feeling and need you have is you want to seek other dreams outside of working the farm. And that's something else that you say in the episode. So it's important to connect with those feelings and needs that you have. Once you've connected with those feelings and needs, you need to recognize your feelings and needs as worthwhile. In other words, you are worthy to have your feelings and needs met and addressed. Next, you want to take responsibility for your feelings and needs. Don't rely on Julia or your parents to take care of this. And that will require a couple of things of you. First, you'll need to communicate your feelings and needs with Julia and with your parents. And second, you will need to take action. So let's talk about what that taking action looks like. Before you take action, you want to determine what is within your control and what is not within your control. When you're focused on trying to take action with things that are outside of your control, that will drive you absolutely crazy and make you and others miserable. So it's so important up front to make that determination, to define that. So what's in your control? Let's give some examples. Whether you choose to live with your parents, whether you choose to be with and continue to date and marry Julia, whether you choose to do chores on the farm, how much time you decide to spend with Julia. Now, those are decisions you can make that are within your control, but you don't necessarily control all of the consequences that could come with those decisions. And so then you have to look at balancing the consequences. Now, what are the things that are outside your control? First of all, the requirements your parents have for living at their home. So while you can decide whether or not you want to live with your parents, you can't control the requirements they're going to have for living at their home. Another thing that is outside of your control is whether or not Julia will decide to work on the farm. Obviously, that would make things a lot easier if she would do that, but that's outside of your control. Finally, another example would be whether your parents or Julia are disappointed in or angry with you. That's not within your control. You need to make your decisions based on what's going to be best for meeting your feelings and needs while considering their feelings and needs, but you can't control their disappointment and anger, and we'll talk about that a little more later. So now that you've determined what is within your control and what is outside of your control, you need to look at the options you have based on what is in your control. Now, you are in this relationship with Julia, so it would be a good idea to work with her to learn to solve problems together as a couple and discuss various options you have based on what's in your control. So let's give some examples. These are just some examples off the top of my head of some options you have based on what's in your control. You can continue to live with your parents in the current situation, trying to make everyone happy, but failing miserably. That doesn't seem like a very good option. So what else is there? Is there another friend or family member you could live with temporarily until you were married and on your feet that would be a better situation? This situation with the parents seems kind of tough. Is there a better situation? Maybe another one might be find a cheap apartment to live in. Is there something that's within your financial means? I know you've built up some debt, but is there an apartment that would be cheap enough that would give you and Julia the space you need and want and still be aligned with your financial goals? Finally, could you consider negotiating with your parents and Julia to try to make your current situation better for everyone? Let's talk about what that might look like. So you want to negotiate with both your parents and Julia to have your needs met while balancing their needs as well. And there's a couple ways you can go about this. A powerful tool you can use as you negotiate with your parents and with Julia is to present the problem to them and ask for potential solutions. So for example, with your parents, you can say something to the effect of, I am working full time and trying to get the chores done on the farm, but I also need to be able to spend time with Julia and give her the attention she needs and deserves as we prepare for our marriage. What are your thoughts on how I can do this? As you're talking to them, you can suggest some options to solve that problem. So hopefully they would come up with some options to solve that problem, but you could also suggest some of your own options that you've thought through in advance. For instance, would they be willing to not require chores as this is a very temporary situation and consider it somewhat of a wedding gift? This is only 90 days. When you're gone, they're going to need to do the chores on the farm anyway. You're working full time. It's not like you don't have a lot on your plate. Would this be something they'd be willing to do? The other option might be, could they decrease the number of chores required? So you can still be doing some help, some level of help, but hey, with the amount that you're having to do right now, it's just overwhelming. Now, how might you negotiate with Julia? Again, you can present the problem to her and ask for potential solutions. Just like she would, you would like to live somewhere else, but the money is a struggle. You can present the budget to her, talk about that with her based on the current financial situation and the goals you both have together. You can say to her, can you think of a way for us to be able to live somewhere else and still afford it? And so that can be a way that you guys can discuss and brainstorm solutions So it doesn't feel like coming up with a solution is all on your shoulders. Involve her in that process and have her help you to brainstorm some ways to solve that problem. Once you've presented the problem to Julia and asked for potential solutions, you, of course, again are going to want to suggest your own solutions to the problem. Now, you guys may not be able to afford to live somewhere else, and so you may want to think of other solutions. And one solution you might present to Julia is, Julia, I want to be able to spend time with you. That's important for me. I know it's important for you. One of the ways that would help me to be able to spend time with you is if you were able to do these chores on the farm. I'm having to do chores on the farm both before and after I work a full-time job. Would you be willing to take on those chores so that I have more time to spend with you? Now, as you negotiate with your parents and Julia, once again, you don't have control over how they're going to respond to that negotiation and if there is going to be a give and take, because they may not be willing to give and you just don't know. So based on what happens in that negotiation, you need to decide what you will do and what you will not do. In other words, you need to set your boundaries. Now, I have a great book, another great book I want to recommend to you, entitled How to Hug a Porcupine by John Lund. This has been a life-changing book for me. I'll put a link in the description below. But one of the powerful principles that comes out of that book is this. You want to decide what a good person would do in your situation based on your constraints and your definition of what a good person would do, not what someone else's definition is. Once you've determined what a good person would do in your situation, you do that thing. Now, the author talks about this principle in relation to working with toxic personalities. I want to clarify that I'm not saying necessarily that your parents or that Julia are toxic personalities, but it's still a principle you can use to establish effective boundaries. So let's talk about what that might look like. You may decide, hey, I do need to put some work in at the farm, but I need to limit how much I do. And so you may say, hey, I can do a half hour or an hour before work. I can do a half hour or hour after work. That's what I can do. I can't do any more beyond that because I still need to have time to be able to spend with Julia and make her a priority. And let your parents know that's the way it's going to be. And let Julia know, hey, this is the amount of time I have to spend with you, and that's the way it's going to be. Now, your parents still have the option of saying, well, if you're not going to do X amount of work, we're going to kick you out. Let them have that option and come up with a plan B if that consequence needs to come into place. But say, hey, this is what I can do. With Julia, she may pout and be upset that you're not spending more time with her. With both your parents and with Julia, you're going to need to learn to be okay with them being angry with you. Now, that is one of the hardest things for guys in nice guy syndrome, and I speak from experience. But that's a powerful principle when you can apply it. Be okay with them being angry with you. There may be some initial fallout once you set your boundaries, but they will be more accepting of your boundaries over time as you apply them consistently. So that's it. Those are the steps you can go through to set your boundaries, to overcome the nice guy syndrome. By enacting these strategies, you can break out of the nice guy syndrome, have your needs met, and not feel so trapped by the whims of others. Although it may seem counterintuitive, it's likely that taking these actions will make your relationships with Julia and your parents better, making everyone happier. So those are some of my thoughts on this latest episode of 90 Day Fiancé. If you are struggling to find lasting love, click the link in the description below to fill out your personalized needs assessment. From there, we'll get you on my calendar for an intake session and create a personalized lasting love action plan that is matched to your specific needs to help you find the healthy and happy relationship you're longing for. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring that notification bell.